The weight you carried alone. Some children grow up with the luxury of being children. They have permission to be vulnerable, to make mistakes, to cry when things hurt. But not everyone gets that privilege. If you were forced to be strong early in life, you know what it feels like to carry weight that wasn't meant for small shoulders. Maybe a parent struggled with addiction or mental illness. Maybe you were the oldest sibling who became the third parent. Maybe loss, poverty, or instability demanded that you grow up faster than your peers. Whatever the reason, you learned one lesson early: you couldn't afford to fall apart. So you didn't. You adapted. You survived. And in the process, you developed traits that still shape who you are today. Some of these traits have served you well. They've made you resilient, independent, and capable. But others have left invisible scars, patterns you might not even recognize as connected to those early years. This video explores the 7 most common traits developed by people who were forced to be strong too soon. And if you recognize yourself in these patterns, you're not alone. Hyperindependence, the inability to ask for help. The first trait is one you probably wear like armor: hyperindependence. When you're forced to be strong early, you learn that asking for help is risky. Maybe the adults in your life couldn't help, or worse, asking for help made things harder. So you stopped asking. You figured things out on your own. You became the person who handles everything alone. As an adult, this shows up in subtle ways. You struggle to delegate at work. You feel uncomfortable when someone offers to help, even with simple things. You'd rather exhaust yourself than admit you need support. The phrase, "I've got it," becomes your automatic response, even when you don't actually have it. Here's what's happening beneath the surface: your nervous system learned that dependency equals danger. Being self-sufficient wasn't just a preference, it was survival. So now, even in safe relationships, vulnerability feels threatening. The cost of hyperindependence is high. It leads to burnout, isolation, and relationships where you're always the giver but never the receiver. It creates a wall between you and genuine intimacy, because real connection requires mutual vulnerability. If this resonates, understand that learning to accept help isn't weakness. It's actually the harder, braver choice for someone with your history. Emotional guardedness, walls built for protection. The second trait is emotional guardedness. When you had to be strong early, you learned to manage your emotions carefully. Maybe expressing fear or sadness was dismissed as weakness. Maybe your family was so overwhelmed that your feelings seemed like an additional burden. Or maybe showing emotion simply wasn't safe. So you built walls. You became the calm one, the composed one, the person who doesn't fall apart. Even now, people probably describe you as strong, level-headed, maybe even a bit distant. But here's the reality: those walls that protected you as a child now prevent deep connection as an adult. You struggle to express needs. You minimize your own pain. When someone asks how you're doing, "I'm fine," rolls off your tongue automatically, even when everything is falling apart. This guardedness often extends to positive emotions too. You might feel uncomfortable with excitement, joy, or even hope, because emotional expression of any kind feels like losing control. You've become so skilled at emotional regulation that you've lost touch with the full spectrum of human feeling. Relationships suffer when one person is always behind a wall. Partners feel shut out. Friends sense the distance. And you end up feeling lonely even when surrounded by people, because no one really knows the person behind the armor. The truth is, selective vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the foundation of meaningful connection. Over-responsibility, carrying everyone's burden. The third trait is over-responsibility, and it's exhausting. When you were forced to be strong early, you likely took on responsibilities that weren't yours to carry. Maybe you managed household tasks, took care of siblings, or became an emotional support system for adults in your life. You became the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who keeps everything together. This pattern doesn't stop in childhood. As an adult, you probably feel responsible for other people's emotions, problems, and outcomes. At work, you take on more than your share. In relationships, you're the one who manages conflict, remembers important dates, and ensures everyone's needs are met. You might even feel responsible for things completely outside your control, like other people's happiness or the success of every project you touch. When something goes wrong, your first instinct is to ask what you could have done differently, even when the situation had nothing to do with your actions. This comes from a core belief formed early: if I don't hold this together, everything will fall apart. That belief might have been true when you were young. But it's not true anymore. Over-responsibility leads to a particular kind of burnout. You're constantly in problem-solving mode, anticipating needs, managing situations. There's no rest because you feel like everything depends on you. And when you inevitably can't control everything, you experience guilt and inadequacy. Learning to distinguish between what's actually your responsibility and what isn't is crucial. Not everything is yours to fix, and not every problem is yours to solve. Difficulty trusting others, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The fourth trait is a deep difficulty trusting others, especially their consistency. When your early environment was unstable or unpredictable, you learned that people and situations can change quickly. Promises might not be kept. People who seem solid might disappear. Good periods can end without warning. So you developed what psychologists call hypervigilance. You're always scanning for signs of change, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Even in healthy, stable relationships, you struggle to fully relax. You test people, sometimes unconsciously, to see if they'll leave or let you down. This shows up in various ways. You might self-sabotage relationships just when they're getting good, because waiting for abandonment feels more unbearable than causing it yourself. You maintain exit strategies in jobs, relationships, and living situations, always prepared to leave before you're left. You probably have trouble believing good things will last. Success feels temporary. Happy periods make you anxious rather than joyful. Compliments are met with skepticism. When someone is kind or reliable, you wonder what they want in return or when they'll stop. This constant state of anticipating betrayal or loss is exhausting. It prevents you from experiencing the security that stable relationships can provide. It robs you of the ability to be fully present in positive experiences. Trust is particularly difficult because it requires surrendering control, and control was your survival strategy. But perpetual distrust guarantees the isolation and disconnection you're actually trying to avoid. High achievement paired with imposter syndrome. The fifth trait is an interesting paradox: high achievement paired with profound imposter syndrome. Many people who were forced to be strong early become high achievers. Achievement provided a sense of control when everything else felt chaotic. Success meant safety, approval, or at least a buffer against vulnerability. So you learn to excel, to be competent, to prove your worth through accomplishment. But here's the paradox: no amount of achievement feels like enough. You've probably accomplished things others would be proud of, yet you feel like a fraud. You attribute success to luck, timing, or other people's generosity rather than your own capability. This happens because your sense of worth was tied to what you could do, not who you were. Your value was conditional, based on being useful, strong, or successful. So even now, when you achieve something significant, it doesn't fill the underlying void because the void isn't about accomplishment at all. You might work compulsively, always chasing the next goal, believing that the next achievement will finally make you feel secure or worthy. But that feeling never comes, because external validation can't heal an internal wound. Imposter syndrome also serves a protective function. If you believe you don't deserve success, then losing it won't hurt as much. It's a preemptive emotional defense against potential loss or failure. The truth that's hard to accept is this: your worth isn't something you need to earn. It's not contingent on achievement, productivity, or being useful to others. It simply is. Difficulty receiving care, uncomfortable with tenderness. The sixth trait is a deep discomfort with receiving care, affection, or tenderness. When you had to be strong early, you learned to be the caretaker, not the cared for. You became skilled at meeting others' needs while neglecting your own. This wasn't selflessness, it was adaptation to an environment where your needs couldn't be prioritized. As an adult, genuine care from others can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. When someone is tender with you, you might feel the urge to deflect with humor, minimize the gesture, or quickly reciprocate to rebalance the exchange. Being on the receiving end of attention or affection can trigger anxiety or an overwhelming urge to escape. This happens because receiving care requires vulnerability, and vulnerability wasn't safe for you early on. It also challenges your identity as the strong one, the helper, the person who has it together. If you're being cared for, who are you? Some people with this trait even unconsciously push away partners who are too nurturing, gravitating toward relationships that feel more familiar, ones where they're needed but not held, where they give but don't receive. The discomfort with tenderness extends to self-care too. You might struggle to rest, relax, or do things purely for pleasure. Self-compassion feels indulgent. Taking time for yourself triggers guilt. Learning to receive without immediately giving back, to accept care without justifying why you deserve it, to let yourself be held without holding yourself together, this is some of the most challenging emotional work you can do. But it's also how you begin to heal. The path forward, recognizing strength and allowing softness. If you've recognized yourself in these traits, the first thing to understand is this: none of this is your fault. You developed these patterns because you had to. They were intelligent adaptations to circumstances that required you to be stronger, more independent, and more resilient than any child should have to be. These traits likely saved you. They helped you survive when survival wasn't guaranteed. The problem isn't that you developed them. The problem is that they've outlived their usefulness. What protected you then now prevents you from experiencing the connection, rest, and support you deserve now. Healing doesn't mean becoming weak or dependent. It means developing flexibility. It means learning that you can still be strong and ask for help. You can be competent and vulnerable. You can take responsibility for your life and let others support you. This journey involves several key steps. First, recognizing these patterns without judgment. Second, understanding their origin and purpose. Third, slowly practicing new behaviors, even when they feel uncomfortable. Fourth, finding safe people and environments where vulnerability is met with respect rather than exploitation. Many people benefit from therapy, particularly approaches like internal family systems or trauma-informed cognitive behavioral therapy, which address these early adaptive patterns. Support groups for adult children of dysfunction can also provide validation and community. Remember, the goal isn't to erase who you've become. The resilience, independence, and strength you developed are real and valuable. The goal is to add options. To develop the capacity for interdependence alongside your independence. To allow softness alongside your strength. You survived by being strong when you had to be. Now you have the opportunity to discover who you are when you don't have to be strong all the time. That's not weakness. That's freedom. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more psychology content that explores the patterns we carry and how we can heal. And remember, recognizing these traits is the first step toward change. You've already begun.